Formed in 1768, the Tobago House of Assembly is the country's oldest political institution.
The Tobago House of Assembly is in fact the institution which represents the right of Tobagonians to assert themselves and to manage their own affairs.
There are a lot of things people should know about the THA. One of the most fundamental things, you can't discuss the THA without calling the word Tobago.
My view is that it represents an attempt at modernizing the constitutional arrangements between Trinidad and Tobago.
To come to the point very quickly, the Tobago House of Assembly is the government mechanism for the running of Tobago. Right? Tobago no longer has a local government in the sense that Trinidad does. It has a special situation, which is the House of Assembly, with, of course, 12 members.
The Tobago House of Assembly represents the earnings and the yearnings of the Tobago community.
First, it was created by the law of Trinidad and Tobago, and secondly, it addressed a need that was expressed by the people of Tobago to feel a little more included in the decision making, to feel their government a little closer to them, to be able to influence some of the decisions that affected their own lives, and simply to make administration easier.
The Assembly itself is analogous to your central government in Trinidad. The Assembly replicates in Tobago what the central government in Trinidad is to Trinidad.
Naturally, the THA in its modern form represents a significant development from the original institution which was created in the 18th century. Originally a colonial institution designed to run the country for the benefit of its small ruling class, the modern Tobago House of Assembly, created by Act 37 of 1980, strives towards the betterment of all citizens of Tobago and lives by its mission to make better provisions for the administration of the island of Tobago and for matters therein.
In the 1760s, Tobago had its own Tobago House of Assembly, which had responsibility for the management of Tobago's affairs.
So it was formed as a body to represent the interests and concerns of the planters, and as had been the practice in other colonial experiences at the time, the Tobago planters felt they had the right of Englishmen to represent themselves and to govern themselves in their own interests. And so that's how the THA was born.
The Assembly is an overarching organization like the government that has the division of education, health, agriculture. Every single government or public service in Tobago falls under the Tobago House of Assembly.
At first, the representatives in Tobago, from Tobago in the Union were selected by the then governor of the United Colony of Trinidad and Tobago. But in 1925, this was changed, and Tobago's representative was elected by Tobagonians.
A number of key figures stand out in the Tobago House of Assembly's evolution and advancement, each playing a significant role in the development of the island throughout the years. But perhaps the most prominent figure of them all was Mr. Arthur N.R. Robinson, the first chairman of the re-established and reformed THA.
Well, I think you got to start at the top. You got to look at those who would have held the position as head of the Tobago House of Assembly, starting, of course, with the icon himself, Arthur N.R. Robinson, who has to be considered to be the architect.
When Robinson became earmarked to become president, well, and of course, when he became prime minister, the chairmanship went to Dr. Jefferson Davidson. We had Mr. Lennox de Noon, right? That's 3 so far. And after Lennox de Noon, we had Ho Choi Charles, right? And after Ho Choi Charles, we have had Orville London. So we have had 5 chairmen, or as the post is now called, Chief Secretary.
Critical to understanding the Tobago House of Assembly's impact on the island of Tobago is understanding the current structure and responsibilities over which it presides.
The THA, as an institution of governance or government for the island of Tobago, has 2 distinct organs. One organ is the Executive Council. The other organ is the legislature.
You have an executive council that is formed by the party that wins the most seats, and the executive council is headed by the chief secretary. The current holder of the position is Orville London.
The Executive Council is the arm of the Assembly that is responsible for the day-to-day affairs of running the island of Tobago. It has the collective responsibility for carrying out its tasks through its divisions, each operating as a ministry would in Trinidad, and each responsible for producing the desired results of the Assembly in areas such as agriculture, marine affairs, education, sport, health, social services, tourism, transportation, and more.
The Tobago House of Assembly has jurisdiction over 33 areas, and according to the Act, with respect to those 33 areas, they have the responsibility and the authority to do all that is necessary to effect development and to effect strategies and policies that will allow them to carry out their responsibilities in those areas.
When the THA was set up, it was identified what their responsibilities were, and so the current structural divisions are based on those responsibilities for infrastructure, for education, for culture, community development, and that sort of thing. And so that you would have in every THA administration a secretary responsible for community development and culture, education, youth sports, and so forth.
The second arm of the THA, the Assembly Legislature, presides over policy debates and policy formulation, and this arm is headed by the presiding officer. And under these areas of responsibility, the House of Assembly has had a significant impact on the cultural, infrastructural, and social development of Tobago. From Tobago's Deepwater Harbour to the A&R Robinson International Airport, these contributions have not gone unnoticed by residents of Tobago, and they've only served to strengthen desire for continued investment in social and cultural initiatives so that the island could reach its full potential.
You have the Assembly taking up its responsibility, and by taking up its responsibility, it was able to improve the conditions in Tobago in almost every aspect. When you look around Tobago, those of us who have been here for an extended period of time would understand what the Tobago House of Assembly has achieved and how it has transformed the Tobago landscape in almost every possible way.
Tobago has made tremendous strides in recent times, especially in terms of the infrastructure.
Or hospital, I think it's a beautiful structure. There's also the cultural complex. And the library. Anybody who goes into the library can't help but be very impressed. I think it is an impressive building. I also look around and see the number of recreation grounds and community centers that have been constructed, and I think they have also, by and large, done well with that.
The rate of unemployment has decreased significantly. Standard of living, the quality of life, our housing stock, the quality of our educational spaces and so on, all of those things have improved significantly over the last 20 years or so.
You will get the sense that you are traveling on better roads, yes? You're going to get a sense that people are probably more comfortable financially than they used to be.
I'm particularly happy, and I would call it a milestone or an achievement, at how we have developed the Tobago Heritage Festival. It's not all satisfactory, but I think the profile has been enlarged. It has virtually become internationally known, and the basis of a great heritage show is there. The THA seems to me to have not mastered the art, but they have demonstrated skill in promoting the cultural aspects of Tobago.
A very important development I've seen in Tobago is that they have established what you call, because they want to bring people up to the internet age, they are establishing what you call walk-in centers in villages where people can go. You walk into the center and learn information technology, how to use the internet, how to use a computer.
To the extent that the library could be used to develop and nurture and to point Tobagonians to some way that we can leapfrog and get to the front of the class in terms of the training and education of our people, then the library, I think, would be one of the signal achievements of the THA over the years.
But also we are hoping that we will soon have the most important milestone of all, somewhere hopefully within months rather than years, where Tobago will achieve the level of self-government which it has desired for all those decades.
This leads us to the central tenet of the Tobago House of Assembly and its quest for greater autonomy and self-governance, despite its jurisdiction over local affairs such as tourism, planning and development, education, and more. The extent to which Tobago controls its own affairs continues to be a major issue for the Assembly and Tobagonian people. It's an issue that dates back to its inception and remains at the fore today. Of the former Chief Secretary, Mr. Ho Choi Charles, the Assembly lacks two critical ingredients that limits its effectiveness in providing governance to Tobago: the power of lawmaking and executive authority without the override of the central government of Trinidad.
The voice of Tobago is not heard in the Parliament. And that's why we are still struggling to have what Parliament decided that we should have 38 years ago. Two things are left: the lawmaking and the executive power. Because you can't give us all this responsibility in Tobago and we are able to formulate and implement policy. And you know the tool for the implementation of public policy is law. So if you don't have lawmaking, you make a decision and you don't have lawmaking, just like in Trinidad. If the government makes a decision, cabinet, and there's no law, they can't implement it. And some of the law requires special majority. Sometimes they can't get the other side to agree, they just have to leave it. So law is the tool for the implementation of government policy. So you can't tell the Assembly you're responsible for this, and you can't make any law, not even to protect the environment of Tobago. So lawmaking has to come. And that is the key to self-government.
The majority of the people in Tobago agree that the relationship between Tobago and Trinidad, as stated in the Constitution, gives too much power to Trinidad. And in keeping with the tenets of democracy, the people of Tobago should be given a greater say in the matters that affect them without interference from the Parliament or from the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago.
And I return you to what I think is the ambition, the goal, the desire, the dream of most Tobagonians is to have full control over their affairs, but within a federal system.
Well, I think the autonomy issue is not going to die. It has almost become part of being Tobago, and I think it is something that needs to be given very, very close attention.
It has reached a stage where there are constitutional proposals for the kind of change that Tobagonians want.
This whole issue of Tobago's self-government has been put back on the front burner. And what has happened is that this time around, there have been some changes. One is that the people have been more involved. There have been numerous meetings and discussions with all the different sectors. But I think most critically, this time around, the mistakes of the past have informed us going forward.
And we have to be careful when we talk THA and don't believe that it is used interchangeably with Tobago, you know. The fight for self-government is by the people of Tobago, you know, not the THA. You know. The THA is only an institution here that is part of that fight, part of that struggle. But it is Tobago's fight.
It's not a question of Trinidad ruling Tobago or Tobago ruling Trinidad. It's about the two islands coexisting, recognizing their differences, and where those differences are localized, right? Local authority must prevail.
But for me, it's more than that. It is the extent to which I can expand the economy of Tobago given the means that are at my disposal. It's the extent to which I can make educational policy that is significantly different from national policy. It's the extent to which, you know, I can do these kinds of things. And I don't think that it is accepted that Tobago has that kind of latitude and that kind of means, right, to develop itself in that way.
Unless the Constitution is changed to remove the authority which the central government has over Trinidad and Tobago for these matters, unless it is changed, you'll be fighting in vain.
It's important to recognize that the mission of the Assembly is not to attain independence from Trinidad, but to attain the right and freedom of the people of Tobago to govern and lead their own destiny in a way that maximizes their human and natural potential. The Assembly wants to see the central government allocate to Tobago's development a fair share of the national budget that reflects the island's contribution to the sovereign democratic of Trinidad and Tobago.
I want a situation where Tobagonians are prepared from the perspective of attitude. They're prepared for what is in fact a challenge. You want to be a very challenging but opportunity-filled period ahead.
I want to know Tobago is at the cutting edge of something. And it's not an impossible dream. It's just that we have to identify what is that thing and train ourselves and develop ourselves and access all the services, all the expertise we can to achieve it.
The countries that have made a paradigm shift towards technology are the countries which have really reaped the benefit in development. And Tobago is seeing itself in that kind of vein, looking very much down the barrel of technology, to help its development.
Development has to be about people. And one of the areas that I will continue to place emphasis, and of course when I'm no longer in this chair, that I expect that the focus will continue to be on human capital development.
We just have to have the right strategies. Perhaps we have to tap into the right people and their expertise and be a little more focused.
Young people are coming up now without the same kinds of loyalties to the old ways. So you never know what innovations will spring from their minds once the conditions are well laid. Those are the things that I have in mind.
In terms of self-government, I think that was also a question that was asked. Is Tobago ready for it? We can do it. We cannot do it immediately in a year.
I want constitutional change that allows the island to manage its own affairs, to manage its own wealth in accordance with local and international law.
All we're saying is we had prepared that forum, would have prepared what in our view the details should be. These are the fundamental issues that we in Tobago want to handle for ourselves in Tobago, to provide the people of Tobago with good governance and a better standard of life.
I will obviously want to see a situation where we finally achieve self-government and we're able to manage our own affairs, and when we do that, we have the capacity to manage it effectively.
This is a very big dream, and it will take the involvement of everybody. It's not only a Tobagonian thing. For the Tobago dream to come into being, there has to be a symbiosis of action, attitudes, perspectives on both islands. There has to be a fusion, a coming together, a rapprochement, and a collaboration, which is not the easiest thing in this country.
I think we need to continue to work together. What we need to do is to respect each other.
But once it's collaboration and Trinidad is willing to say or to understand that what we want is not to be in hostility, but we just want to be side by side, if to use a phrase. Yeah, so yes, we're ready in that sense.
If you define Tobago as its landmass, its territorial waters and its exclusive economic zone, I think all of us would appreciate that the potential in what you can consider Tobago is really fantastic when you look at what it can do to ensure that this country of Trinidad and Tobago has a bright and prosperous future. So I think maybe the last aspect of that vision is appreciation from all Tobagonians of themselves and the people of Trinidad and Tobago for the contribution and the potential of Tobago.